I hate the push that everyone seems to have to make kids independent. And so I think kids should be like, we want kids to feel capable and to be independent to in their capacities. But I feel like it also sends the wrong message that if you ever need help, you are failing. You are a failure. And that's why in my classroom, I talk all the time about interdependence, because like as an adult, I need help to do things. Like as an adult, especially the pandemic has really taught me how much I need a good support system.
Definitely.
And we don't want children to become adults who feel like they have to internalize everything because they don't want anyone to see that they can't do something, because there becomes a sense of shame, right? Of like,
it does. Can I get political for a second?
Yes, you may.
I feel like in some ways this is a part of the culture that we've made, and probably to some extent has to do with the capitalistic philosophy.
Neoliberalism, which I bring up all the time. Yes.
Your worth is tied to your capability to produce.
Your projected value to society.
Yeah, and the more you are able to do by yourself, the less of a burden you are to others. And so I think culturally and politically, we have this opinion of people that they should not be interdependent, not recognizing, of course, that is a part of what it means to be human.
Yes, because we are sort of building this culture of competition. We're ranking students against one another, right? And that is what has been so destructive, in my view. That has been what has been so destructive to mental health and just society in general. Like,
like we're not supposed to be in competition with each other. We're supposed to, okay, maybe this is a very hippie statement to make, but I just feel like we're all humans.
Yeah.
And like we're stronger together.
And that is such a black and white issue to me. Like that makes so much sense. I don't know why people overcomplicate it.
No.
You know?
And we each have strengths that we can utilize in the greater system that is humanity. Like, just because you are someone who has a handicap of some kind, it doesn't mean that you can't contribute. Like, human interaction, positive human interaction, is value as well.
Yes. I think about this all the time.
Being a kind person is more important than being a person who gets a good salary. Like, I don't want to have rich friends around me. I want to have kind, respectful,
compassionate,
creative, compassionate people, intelligent people. And you know, I even have I have sometimes a disagreement with a person in my immediate circle. That one of the people that we both know is someone who has a brain injury. Sorry, words. They have a brain injury. It's quite severe. It means that they have very bad memory and such. But this person is the kindest, most helpful, most selfless person that I've ever met. And I'm so thankful that I've met that person and that I know that person. And sometimes when other people get frustrated about them because of this brain injury that they have, like, I feel upset that someone would berate them or would talk behind their back even about the things that are difficult for them or the things that they can't do, because like it's still a person who is willing to come and help you with whatever they are able to do.
Yes.
it's still someone who never says a bad word about anyone. And I just feel like that has so much value.
Well, and it does speak to societal, what society does value as like obviously valuing work ethic and things that are tied to work. But when I think of like my brother Danny, who, as you know, he's autistic, he has an intellectual disability. Like he doesn't have a job, but if you sit in his presence, like I don't think I've ever felt as accepted in anyone's presence as I do with Danny. And that is such a gift to have. Like, why don't we value things like that more? I certainly value those things, but just from a general societal, I don't know why we prioritize the wrong things.
No, and I think that we forget on a systemic level. I think in each of our individual lives, we do remember those people who impact us in a positive way. But on a more systemic level, I feel sometimes that we forget the value of interconnectedness, which as I say it is such a strange thing for an autistic person to say, because there's this myth that we are not social creatures.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like we are perhaps some of the people who recognize to the greatest extent how much kindness can make a difference. And how much true friendship can make a difference.
Exactly. And watching from the outside how other people are more connected, like you want that, you just might not feel like you can do that, or with those people that for some reason you can't connect. And once you find that, like, come on, we are like the best friends anyone's ever going to have. Like,
yeah,
like
we're never going to, I have friends that I don't speak to them maybe more than once a year, but they're like, if they call me and say, I need you to show up right now.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Exactly.
I'm there. And I know that it's the same thing for them. And that type of friendship is just worth everything.
Yes. And I don't know if this is at all because of neurodivergence or not, but like any friendship I have, I love very deeply. I love the people in my life very, very deeply. I kind of go from just being reserved to I love you. Like those are my two modes. And then, but then there's this other thing where with the passage of time, like if I don't speak to someone, like you said, for a period of time, I think because I have such intense memories, my memory is really good, really visceral. I can immediately pick up and my the strength of my feelings, my support, my understanding of their life context is so strong.
I love that. That's such a cool point. And like, no, I hadn't thought of that actually, but I do think maybe that you're right, that those of us who have very intense emotions, we tend not to forget those emotions. And when they're tied to people in our lives, it hangs on in a different way. Yeah. Can we go back a little bit? Because somehow we've segued from internalized ableism to this, and I love that. But one of us said before we started recording, said about like the perception of ourselves as lazy. And I think that might be a pet peeve for both of us.
Definitely is. And I have to work so hard with students who say it about themselves and with their parents and with teachers. Like, laziness is not a thing. If you like, okay, it's one thing if it's a Sunday, you have nothing to do and you're lounging on the couch. That's not laziness. That's relaxing. But if you're calling yourself lazy because you are having difficulty getting started or getting through something, that is I'm going to pull out some Ross Green here. That's a signal of an earlier problem that needs to be solved. That is showing you there's something that is difficult for yourself or for this child. And like, calling someone lazy or calling yourself lazy does not help in any way.
It does not. I have this problem with several clients right now who perceive themselves as either lazy or not having any value to society because they aren't doing things. And I do struggle with it myself sometimes because my need for recharging activities in order to cope with my workload is such that sometimes things I feel like should get done don't get done.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so behind in emails right now. Like I've let every ball drop since the beginning of September, pretty much.
Oh yeah, it's something's. Yeah. I think there's also a weariness after like the long period of the pandemic. I think that there's like a long-term stress that's building for a lot of people. Anyway, I really try to explain to people when they bring up laziness that like I feel the same way that you do. Laziness doesn't exist. Prove to me that it exists. I don't buy it. And still I internalize it with myself. But you know, when I'm talking to people, I tell them there is no such thing, because no matter what we do or don't do, there's always a reason. There's always a reason for an activity happening, but there's also a reason for not doing something.
And going back to Ross Green, like just say like, if you could do well, would you? And no one's going to say, no, I'd rather not do well. Like, no. So if you're not doing well, there's a reason. Like, it's so logical.
Yeah. And I think the people who would say no are people who are so depressed or who have such a poor self-image that they can't imagine doing well.
Yes. And I mean, I remember having a student who his anxiety was so high. Like he would say, I'd rather take a 0 than try something, like all the time. Because that's an outcome he's in control of, right? And it doesn't reflect on your self-worth, because if you're making the choice not to do it, you don't have to admit to yourself that something is hard. And even worse, I think everyone's worst fear is not just that what I believe about myself is true, but that others will see that what I believe about myself is true as well.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to tell people fear is lying to you. Your fear, your anxiety is a liar. There's actually a song. There's a song called Fear is a Liar.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I found it last year after I'd been saying for such a long time, your anxiety lies to you. There's actually a Fear is a Liar song.
Oh, brilliant. I have to find that.
Yeah.
I mean, fear, anxiety, depression, they're liars.
They are not a reflection of reality, not necessarily anyways.
They can't tell you the truth. Well, fear can, but anxiety and depression are incapable of telling you the truth.
Yeah.
It's a part of the definition, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I have this client who they're a young person in school and they are non-speaking. And they are specifically non-speaking in a way that a lot of people would classify as a choice. I don't consider it a choice because I always feel like if you're not speaking, then there's a reason you're not speaking. And so with this client, I will type with them instead. And they came to me and said, you know, at school, I don't have a way of communicating they don't have a way for me to type to them.
Yeah.
And I spent like 10 minutes telling this young person, you deserve the respect from your teachers, from the staff at school, that they will meet you in the way that you are comfortable communicating. You deserve that. You are worth that.
Yeah.
And I think for me, with all aspects of having a handicap, having challenges, being neurodivergent, whatever we want to call it, I feel like this sense that we have to meet non-autistic standards in order to be good enough,
yes,
is so flawed. Like, all people deserve the respect from other people, that there is effort made on both parties.
Well, this is, I mean, I told you already, my vision, and I've talked to some other great educators about this. My vision is really that we start at the general classroom level and we get all kids in the class thinking about their brain, thinking about, okay, what are they experts in? What are their strengths, and what is hard for them? Because everyone has things that are hard for them. And then what is it that they need? What are the learning tools? Like, let's not call them accommodations. Let's call them learning tools, because they're available to anyone who needs them. And I think as teachers, we have to start early going, you know what? If you don't like reading, you can listen to an audiobook if that's something that helps you. If you like, we need to sample these things. Like, we have to give students a smorgasbord of learning tools and say, which ones work for you? Which ones do you like? Which ones don't matter to you? And so that everyone grows up with this idea that it is normal to ask for things that you need. And it is acceptable to ask for things that you need and to accept help. And it's not just those identified kids who have, you know, the special education classes that have needs. No, everyone in the room has needs. You do not have to feel shame for needing something. You don't have to feel like a burden, because that's the other part of internalized ableism, is that often we don't ask for the things that we need because we don't want to be a burden.
And the thing is, the most profound experiences that I've had in a school setting have been experiences where I have felt, you know, safe, accepted, respected, you know, like,
and you can't learn.
Such a basic human need. Like, it's not a lot to ask for.
And no learning happens if you don't have those things. Like, the worst school year of my life was my grade 6th year, where I was so badly bullied and I was seated with my 3 bullies the whole year. Like, I was in a desk group with them the whole year. And this is the only year of my life I remember learning nothing. Like, every other year I have detailed memories of projects and interactions and what I played at recess, or whatever happened at recess. And this one year, it's like, I only remember sheer misery. Nothing academic, nothing.
Nothing is good.
It wiped my memory, like that, which is scary, you know?
No, but when you're surrounded by bullies, when you're surrounded by people who make you feel unsafe, you can't learn. And you can't develop and be productive. And it goes for adults as well. Like, it's not a child's need. It's a human need. Feeling that there's room for you and that your needs are accepted and respected, and that others attempt to meet them.
And this is why,
even if they can't, you know, I've spoken sometimes about how my language is kind of autistic and other people's language is non-autistic. In the same sense that like I speak Danish and English, like you can learn to speak languages, but like the social relationships where I feel the best are the ones where I can see that the other person is trying to understand me. It's not necessarily that they can. It's not necessarily that they actually get it. But the fact that they try, the fact that they want to, that makes, like, if we're both putting in an effort, I'm there with you. We're going to be friends forever.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're expecting autistic people to do all the work in integrating and accommodating to non-autistic society, culture, language, that's when being autistic becomes a handicap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it does seem to be that the labor is so often on us, like even having to self-advocate for the things that you need and organize your thoughts to be able to do that, like and jumping through hoops in universities and other settings you have to have accommodation letters, you have to fill out all these forms. That is horrific. And I mean, I make it very clear when I teach at graduate level, that you just ask me. Accommodations are for anyone. Whatever you need, if I can do it, I will do it. We will have a conversation about what is possible. Like, I don't care if you have a university registered letter, like, unless you're saying I need to hand something in 6 months after the course, then we might have a problem. So
but like, but for the most part, like, let's just try to make it work.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that's the main issue, isn't it? And I can't, while you were speaking, I couldn't help thinking, like, and we're both white women.
Yeah.
You know, and we are both, like, you were diagnosed as gifted. Me, I'm very, very average. But like, we don't have cognitive difficulties. No. And yes, we're women, so in some ways that makes things more difficult, but in other ways it makes things easier. But like, I know that for Black autistic people or for trans autistic people, there are so many more challenges that go on top of just our experiences.
Oh, exactly.
And it's just not a wonder to me why the risk of self-harm and suicide attempts is so high amongst autistic people, and especially amongst those who are a member of several marginalized groups.
Well, and who have to engage in various levels of masking, like Black autistics who are code switching their language because they're judged based on, you know, and then having to mask autistic traits and having to, like, oh my goodness.
I have such mad respect for all autistic people who survive, quite frankly.
And that's what it is. Like, it's hard to get through. It's hard to get through school. It's hard to get through life without being traumatized. Like, but especially with the intersectionality, right?
Without being traumatized. See, now you've said something that kind of, like, okay. A mother that I see in my clinic said to me not too long ago, you know, at school, they will say that these and these things that my child is doing, that those are just autistic traits. But I don't get it, because I've seen what my child is like when they are feeling good. And so what they consider to be autistic traits, I consider to be stress symptoms.
Yeah.
And to me, that just enhances the point that so many autistic people are making, which is that the diagnostic criteria and the descriptions of autism are so based on the fact that we don't recognize untraumatized autistic people as autistic.
Which is why it took me a long time to come to a diagnosis myself, even though, I mean, now I have like unpacked a lot of trauma that I had sort of put away in boxes and tried to forget about, but
stowed away in the back of your mind.
Right. And then suddenly you're like, oh, that's a pattern, that. I'm like, but
oh shit.
Yeah, right. Like, what have I been repressing? But I like, definitely I'm a successful adult for the most part. Okay. Not if you look at me trying to do taxes or all of those things, but I have lots of professional elements that have worked well for me. And we need to be able to identify people who are not just in crisis.
Yeah.
Although I've definitely had my moments of being in crisis.
Well, here's the thing, right? Even me, with all of my privileges, and I am very privileged, with all of my privileges, sorry, words. There are several times in my childhood, especially, that there was a decent risk that I would not have survived. Like I have had suicidal ideation that has gone to the level of planning. And the things that have stopped me from acting have been the strangest details. So even with that privilege that I have of living in a society with a really good social security net, being white, being conventionally attractive, being intelligent-ish, being, being everything that I am, that has still been hard. And yet, when we look at the two of us, our privilege goes so far that if we looked at quality of life in outcome studies, which focus on, work, income, romantic and other social relationships, independent living, we check those boxes. Like, we have the good outcome.
Yes.
And we still struggle. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I still struggle on a daily basis. Like, I'm not having an easy time despite everything. And I don't want to make it a pity party. Like, I don't pity me, but I just feel like there are things that could be so different. There are things that could be so different for the children that are going to school right now when they become adults, if they are not traumatized throughout their entire childhood.
Exactly. And like, what is fundamentally wrong with education that so many people are coming out traumatized? Like there has to be massive change, like massive changes.
And not even just autistic people, because we're seeing so many
traumatized children, BIPOC children, any sort of racialized group, and LGBTQ plus,
even children who shouldn't, like children who are not neurodivergent, children who are not a part of marginalized groups. In Denmark, we had we had a school reform, it's a while ago now, but we had a school reform where some politicians decided that it would be a great idea to take all of the kids that had been assigned to special schools
Okay.
And include them, integrate them into traditional schools and traditional classes. And the result of that was that the children with challenges felt so much worse. Their challenges were, what's it called? Enhanced, but in a bad way.
Yeah.
I can't with words today. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, it's late. It's late in Denmark.
It's late. I have already worked like 36 hours this week.
And it's only midweek.
It's only midweek. It's a lot for me. Whatever. But also the children who previously were, functioning well in traditional schooling, who have no diagnoses and who really shouldn't be having a hard time, they started developing, stress and anxiety, and were like, statistically, we could see that the attempt at forcefully including children in traditional schools who did not have the capacity to be there, or who were not giving they were not given learning tools, but also other accommodations that they needed.
Oh my gosh.
Bad for everybody.
Inclusion without any supports, that's a terrible idea.
No, see, they sent the money along, but you're sending money along to staff that doesn't have any training.
Yes, exactly.
That's a recipe for disaster. You're sending it to a school that does not have, a specialized program of any sort. They can't have their own personalized schedule. They can't have the accommodations in the classroom. They can't have the accommodations really outside of the classroom either. And there isn't money to train teachers, to educate them, to supervise them. It's just not there. And so even though you're sending the money along in some capacity, you've maybe got an extra support teacher in the classroom, but for all of the children who need support and different support, it's not. And it was such a failure. It's been such a failure.
Inclusion is the preferred setting here in Ontario, the province that I'm in Canada. So we have what's called, it's like a 3-tier system. So the first tier of intervention is the general classroom, but with differentiated instruction and universal design for learning. And if students don't appear to be thriving or responding as well as a teacher would like, they take some data. The next tier is tier 2 would be some sort of like maybe partial support, partial withdrawal, whether it's getting a resource teacher, special education teacher. So a little bit more support for those students. And then if that is not enough, then tier 3 would be a specialized placement. So we do have some specialized classes, but the first thing to try is usually always the inclusive model. But even that, like, there's so many studies that show that, autistic teenagers who've gone through inclusive education their entire school careers in high school still feel like outsiders, right?
And this actually goes to a point that I read a study at one point saying that they had done some testing in like social interactions between different groups. So it was autistic and autistic, non-autistic and non-autistic,
and a mixed group?
Mixed.
Yes.
And what they found in the study is that non-autistic people withdraw and reject social interaction with autistic people. It's not autistic people that don't want to socialize with non-autistic people. It's the other way around. And
I don't know if this is the same study because I don't remember that angle.
It might be.
But okay, There was a study sort of testing the double empathy theory. And it was like that game of broken telephone. I don't know if you have that in Denmark.
Yeah.
Where you sort of whisper something and you see how the
Yeah.
message changes. So it was a chain of like, I don't know, 8 to 10 people. So, and the first group was fully autistic. The second group was fully non-autistic. And then it was a mixed group. So you'd have a non-autistic and an autistic and a non-autistic and an autistic. And okay, the two groups, the neurotypical group and the autistic group, had basically the same success outcomes for remembering how the story went. And so they communicated equally effectively, but the mixed group, it fell apart. So it's really, it shows that it's communication across neurotypes.
Yeah.
That is the challenge, right?
Yeah.
And
this is what I've always said as well. It's like, if we have to learn to communicate non-autistically, then you have to learn to communicate autistically. It's not right to put the burden of communication onto us. We don't have an empathy deficit. We don't have a social communication deficit. There is a deficit between us.
Yes, that is
it's not on me.
Shared.
Yeah.
And then I also think too, like as a teacher, if I had a student who had a hearing impairment, I would not be putting it on them to hear me, right? I'd be like, you have to change. You got to be able to hear me. I'm never writing it down on the blackboard. You need to read my lips. No.
We would never expect of physical handicaps what we expect of
brain-based
neurological.
Yeah, exactly. So like just like we would accommodate students like that, we have to accommodate autism and ADHD and all the other learning disabilities, like all the other ways of being and thinking and experiencing the world.
Yeah. So what I hear from your description of your system, your schooling system. So we have also inclusion first, and then we have kind of special placement classes, but in the traditional schools. So it's like the same campus. It's the same environment, but just the class is neurodivergent, I guess. And then we have specialized programs that are separate from schools, and then we have treatment schools.
Yeah, I think we have some more intensive settings like that as well.
Yeah. So the treatment schools is basically when a child is not able to function even in the specialized setting, where at that point you're really going like, okay, you're traumatized. You're not gonna, okay, we have to actually treat your trauma before we can educate you again.
And this is, I don't know if you have something called behavior programs where you are, but we have things where you put kids who have significant challenging behaviors all together. And it's like, it's the worst. I am fundamentally opposed to behavior programs because they are traumatized children and they are traumatized in that environment. And as we know, especially with Black autistics, they are misdiagnosed as behavioral all the time. I had a student who, here we have a rule that you can't be in a behavior program if you're autistic. So he started in a behavior program, then got the diagnosis. And it took me so long to build trust and undo the damage to the nervous system, right? That we've been talking about already. We should not be putting traumatized students together in a setting with adults who yell at them and who we need to be working with them.
Adults shouldn't yell at
they
children.
Shouldn't yell ever. But it seems to be an accepted practice, and I don't understand why. I don't understand how you could feel good about yourself.
No, so anyway. And I mean,
breathe. Tara,
it's not that I don't understand. You know, I understand the frustration that will cause you to yell at someone, even a child. I do.
But you as an adult have to be a better self-regulator than the children in front of you, because you are teaching them how to self-regulate, right?
Yeah. And you're teaching them how to cope with people who are feeling bad. Like, you're teaching them that when you express difficulties, when you express your handicap to me, or when you express emotional dysregulation to me, I'm going to react with being on the offense. I'm not going to react with kindness and compassion. And so you can't expect kindness and compassion from people when you need it the most.
Exactly.
And that's what we're teaching children when we do that.
And then they're always feeling like stressed out because they can't trust you. They can't trust your predictable reactions.
No.
You know? And again, what are you modeling? Because we are always teaching. We're teaching whether we think we're teaching or not. You are teaching it's okay to scream when you're upset.
Yeah. And this is why I love the low arousal approach. Like, when you're with a child who has a meltdown,
you get quiet. You know, you get calm.
You get quiet, you back away, you sit down.
Yeah. You wait it out.
You wait with speaking, because they're not going to be able to cope with your speaking right now. Yeah. So just don't.
And it baffles.
Quiet.
It baffles my mind, because if you perspective take it all, like if you think about, okay, when I'm nearing a meltdown, when I'm really upset, if someone were talking at me, you know what I mean? If someone were talking at me or yelling at me, like,
behave yourself.
Has that ever in the history of humanity worked to calm someone down? Come on.
No, you know? No. Oh, and of course we know the best way to calm someone down who is upset, which is to say, are you upset?
Yes. Let's ask them stupid questions.
Or calm down.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Calm down.
I would if I could.
Like if I'm already upset and someone tells me to calm down, that's when I'm really not going to calm down.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to calm down and now I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like way better to say, can I get you a glass of water? Or would you like to go for a walk? Or like something like that, where the choice is
would you like to go to would you like to go to the quiet room?
Yeah.
Would you like to have access to a sensory toy?
Exactly.
Or
I will listen to you when you're ready to talk. I want to hear from you. Yeah.
Better yet, instead of asking questions, just go,
there you go.
I'm going to sit down and I'm going to be silent. If you need to go to the quiet room, you can go to the quiet room. And if you want me to come with you, I will come with you. If you want me to sit outside, I will sit outside. I'll wait.
Exactly.
We are going to do this now.
Yeah, at a certain point, questions they can't process anyways. But in that first stage where they're becoming, then it's like, would one of these things help? Yeah. And then it's like, okay, now I'm not going to speak anymore. I'm here when you're ready to talk.
Yeah.
I will listen to you when you're ready.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
I wish more teachers and support staff and parents knew and practiced the approach of low arousal, but also, making an effort to increase their theory of mind towards us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other pitfall that I think people fall into sometimes is giving the child things or doing things for the child to help the child to regulate. Like, oh, the child's really upset. Here's some chocolate milk. Like, or let me rub your back. Like parents will sometimes do that. I had a student who wanted his back rubbed all the time when he was upset at school. And I had to say, you guys have to stop this at home. Like you need to find things that this student can independently do for himself. Like that's so important because you're not always there. And it can't be get some chocolate milk and get a back rub. I, as a teacher, can't give him a back rub. I could lose my license, like.
Yeah. And there's also like, you can't always get chocolate milk.
No.
But this is what it is to like have a set of tools available. You have an emotional regulation toolbox
with many different options. Yeah,
exactly. Make sure that there's several tools in there, several things to do with different emotions that we can pick up and use in each different type of situation.
And
because if your regulation tools are tied to a specific context, you're screwed. Exactly.
And I have something on my website too about like how to find and make sensory tools as a family. Like you can experiment, introduce 2 new tools every weekend. Go, hey, what do you think of this? Yay. Is this something that would work for you? No? Okay, well, it works for me. And as an adult, talk about what you do when you're upset. Because the other thing I found, I've had students who have been shocked when I say, oh yeah, like I get upset sometimes too. And they don't, or I use strategies and they don't believe it because I look calm, right? No, I've had a longer time on this earth. I have developed many effective strategies and you will too. It's not just you as a child who needs to self-regulate. Every person on earth is learning how and getting better at self-regulation. Yeah. The thing is that we have had the time to collect more tools for our toolbox. And to hopefully recognize more of our emotions. Yeah. As well. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking that for today, it's probably a good point to end it. I think we've been recording now for quite a while. We have. It's probably already a very, very long video. Maybe if I was about to say we, but it's really you because editing is I'm thinking that there may be chunks of this video that we can break down into to smaller bits. Oh, that's a good idea. We'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah. We'll figure it out. Yeah. And maybe at some point as well, if our listeners, subscribers, if they would be interested in it, we can figure out maybe someday how to do a live stream. Oh, that would be awesome. I would love that. I mean, for me, interacting with people and actually having questions, what people actually want to talk about, that for me is always really interesting. So and really meaningful. I agree. Yeah, that could be a thing. Yeah, I'd love that. We can figure it out. Okay. Well, thanks for sticking with us, everyone. Yeah, thank you. Following our tangents. We hope you enjoyed our very weird and wonderful conversation. Mutual rant. We do that quite a bit, don't we? We do.